Build a better mousetrap. I had heard this phrase thrown around a lot of times, but I never actually knew where it came from. So I did my homework and I looked it up, and it turns out it's attributed to a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. If a man can write a better book, preach a better sermon, or make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, though he build his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. That is what we all want, right? As marketers, we want people beating a path to our door to buy all the things. This is what we want, right? But here's the problem. This quote is about building a better product. And a lot of times as marketers, we can feel removed from that, right? That can feel out of our control. We're not in product development. We don't necessarily be able to influence the innovations that are coming. Sometimes we don't even know until we have to put them up on the website, right? And so this can feel really out of our control. How do we build that better mousetrap when we're not in control of it? But here's the thing, y'all. I have good news. We recently did some research in partnership with Demand Gen Report. In particular, this was looking at millennials who have B2B influence or influence over purchases of $10,000 or more, but the results really hold for all kinds of buying groups. And we asked, all other things being equal, things like price and specs and quality, how important is an excellent digital buying experience to vendor selection? 88% of them said it was extremely or very important. Now, how many of you guys have been in the room, or maybe you're like, oh, it's kind of hard to really actually say what's that different about what we sell, or we're in a price war, and so what do we do to really differentiate ourselves? They're telling us, 88% are saying, I will pick a vendor based on the digital buying experience. So this is the thing, guys. Even though you may not be able to control that product development cycle, you can definitely influence the digital buying experience that can have customers beating a path to your door. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, your website is really the cornerstone of that digital buying experience. So let's get into it, the mousetrap. She's a beaut, isn't she? This, of course, is kind of like the standard old mousetrap. It was invented in the 1800s and patented in the late 1800s, so it's been around for a really long time. And of course, just as the Build a Better Mousetrap would have us believe, this has over 4,400 patents for different types of mousetraps. So lots and lots and lots of people have tried to build a better mousetrap. You know what is still the best-selling kind of mousetrap? This one right here, the one that you can buy for a couple bucks at the grocery store. So 4,400 people have patented a mousetrap that's not necessarily better. Well, what's so great about this mousetrap? It's pretty simple, right? It's made up of a couple of simple things, but it's been working for over 100 years. So let's break it down a little bit. The thing here is, the mousetrap, even though it's kind of a simple machine and it's just made up of a couple of really easy parts, right? It represents this concept of being irreducibly complex. All of the pieces have to be there. You can't remove one piece or part of the mousetrap and still have it work. All of the pieces have to work together. And I think that's a lot like websites, right? There's a lot of different things that go into websites. And if you pick out one of them, you can go, I can deal with that. If it's just about, let's just improve the message on our homepage. Or maybe we just need to talk about what color and copy should be on our buttons. Or let's just focus on our landing pages. Each of those things in and of themselves can feel like a little nugget that you can bite off. But all of this stuff has to work together, and if you're anything like me, this can start to feel really irreducibly complex. So that's, I'm guessing, why you're all here today and why I want to give you some tips to take forward. So let's look at a mousetrap. Obviously, you guys have probably seen one before, but I want to kind of break this down to kind of build out the analogy. So the first piece of a mousetrap is the platform, right? This is the thing that all the other pieces kind of sit on and rest on. And so in website terms, I think of this as things like your content management system, maybe the integrations that you have with other marketing technology that make sure that you have the data coming and going to the places that it needs to go. And then I also think of things like user interface design and navigation, those things that should just kind of fall away and blend in that make all of the rest of the website work smoothly. The next piece is the hammer. This is kind of the thing that obviously gets the job done. And so in website terms, I think of this as that thing that is tied to your business objectives. So if you're trying to drive kind of top of funnel lead generation, or if you're trying to drive all the way through to closing sales on your website, that's what I think of the hammer, like what is getting the job done at the end of the day. So this is things like forms and demos that are conversion opportunities for customers on your site, as well as certainly e-commerce. The next is the spring. The hammer can't work without the spring, and the spring has to be really smooth and really fast, right? So I think of things like performance here, right? No one's gonna wait 12 seconds for your homepage video to load, or whatever the case may be. So you want to think here about making sure that your website is really quick and performant. And it's also really important, obviously, to think about the cross-device experience, and particularly thinking about kind of that mobile-first design, which is super important as mobile use grows, but also sometimes really hard when you're thinking about all the complex things we sometimes have to show on B2B websites. Then you have the hold down bar. This is the thing that holds down the hammer until just the right moment, right? If the hammer was just like flapping in the wind, the mouse would catch wind of that right away and not fall for it. Something has to hold it back. And so I think of things like the digital experience. What are all of those pieces of content and messages and interactive opportunities that you're offering on your website that really get users engaged and wanting to kind of stay on your website and come back and visit? And then what are those conversion paths that are kind of taking them through all of the opportunities to understand more about your product? Next, you have the catch. This is the little thing that the cheese rests on. And this is where all of the engineering of the mousetrap and all of the pre-planning and all of the setting of the trap all has to come together and wait and respond to the behaviors of the mouse. And our websites need to do some of the same stuff, right? So I think here about things like real-time personalization and even behavior-based journeys that might launch after a user has been on your website and you're continuing to nurture them based on their interest and what actions they've taken on your website. And then last, you gotta have cheese, right? Of course. And this is what us marketers oftentimes like to think of the most, right? What is the content? What's the message? What's the video gonna be on the top of the page? And of course, these things are really important and certainly a thing that we wanna focus on, but the cheese in and of itself ain't gonna get the job done. If there was just cheese sitting on a piece of wood, the mouse would eat it and move right on by, right? So all of these things have to work together. So I wanna take the analogy out of 30,000-foot view and try to make this a little bit real for you. So I'm going to share with you the site theory that we use at the MX Group, just as a framework for thinking about how to tackle some of the challenges on a B2B website. The first thing I'll say is this is not meant to be a wireframe, and it is not meant to be a design. If this was the design of a homepage, the MX Group would be out of business and I would be out of a job. This is obviously ugly, so it is not meant to represent at all a design. It's just meant to be kind of a framework for how to think. And so this is a B2B homepage, and the yellow here, all of the yellow boxes are meant to represent hooks and little nuggets of cheese, if you will, that are meant to be pulling people in and engaging with them and pulling them deeper into the site. So those could be offers or different pieces of content to pull them in. At the top of the page, you want to think about offering prominent repeat conversion opportunities. And this isn't the stuff that you want buyers to do. This is the stuff that buyers want to do. So you want to think here about what are the types of things that are maybe repeat actions or prominent actions that a buyer might want to take throughout the buy cycle, or even things that a customer might need to do. So here I think about things like distributor lookup or find a rep or customer portal login, all of those things. How can you make that super easy to find and prominent? And then next I want to talk about navigation. And I think it's really important that the way that you structure your navigation has your users in mind first. If you take nothing else from our time here today, I want you to hear this. Thou shalt not make your navigation match your org chart. Don't do it. Don't do it. But how many of us have been kind of stuck in that position, right? We have thousands of products, right? Anyone? Got thousands of products, all the SKUs. And so how are we going to organize them? Well, let's organize them by our division. Al runs this department. We're going to, we're going to structure it that way. The problem is sometimes that's not how buyers think. So maybe instead of saying, here are all the wood things we make and here are all the metal things we make, maybe you need to say, here are the things we make for agriculture, here are the things we make for oil and gas, right? So don't structure it in the way that your departments are structured or the way your org chart looks, but rather in the way that the user wants to experience that and in a way that's meaningful to them. And so I also want you to think about what are all of the questions and needs and information that they need to find throughout the buyer's journey. And do you make it really easy for them to figure out where in the navigation they would find that? If they're earlier on in their process and they're just trying to understand their problem and what the options are, would they know where on your website to find that information? And what if they need to compare? Do they know on your navigation where to find that, or do they have to go through 17 drop-down menus and read your mind? So make sure you're thinking about a user-centric navigation path. Further down on the homepage, these red boxes are meant to represent kind of subsets of your audience that you might want to focus on, and the way that you can think about drawing in maybe different personas, different industries, or different applications, and having some content that really draws them in right from your homepage. And that can pull them to web pages that are really curated experiences just for them, rather than making them go to the product page to learn about the stuff that you have for healthcare, and then go to the resource library to find the stuff that you have related to healthcare, and then go to the spec sheets to find the stuff related to healthcare. Could you curate that for them in one place and say, here's all the information a healthcare buyer might need to know to find out about how our products fit with their needs? And then, of course, many top demand generating websites have an inbound content play that's usually supported by a resource library. That's nothing new, but I again want to encourage you to be thinking about a user-centric way to think about this. So again, don't organize your content by the ways that make sense to you. Think about the jargon and lexicon and terms and things that your users would be searching for. All right, so enough of the theory, let's get to the real deal. I promised a lot of examples, so we're gonna launch right into them. Quick disclaimer here, some of these examples that I'm gonna show you are definitely sites that the MX group has built for our clients, and others of them I have absolutely no connection to, and they're just B2B websites that I found in the wild that I thought were great examples. So I just wanna be clear about that from the upfront. Here's one other thing that I want to acknowledge is, it's kind of the 800-pound gorilla. B2B websites are just hard. So I don't want you to think like, oh, she's just up there making it sound so simple. I know it's not simple. I know it's really complex. We have diverse buying groups and long buying cycles and complex products. I definitely get it. And so that's why I want to give a lot of different examples today that will hopefully kind of give you some little nuggets of inspiration that you can steal and take forward. Because I want you to be inspired to build that better website, to build that better mousetrap, not just to make some kind of newfangled version of a mousetrap that's not really that effective and probably isn't going to do what you need it to do, but really to get the job done to drive the business value from your website investment. So let's jump right in. Our first example is from Atlas Tube. They are a steel tube manufacturer, and what I really love about their website is it's very audience-centric right from the very beginning. As kind of more in the industrial space, they sell to a wide variety of different types of buyers or people that might need to be involved in the purchase process. So right in their navigation where they're talking about their resource library and their design aids, they're calling that out for engineers, for distributors, for fabricators, for OEMs right there. And you can see those same red callouts lower down on the homepage. Of course, there's all of those hot hooks that I mentioned that are little nuggets to kind of pull people in with other kinds of resources. But I really love these red callouts that are taking you to these pages that are really focused. So this is the distributor page. There's, talk about customer portals and videos that might be relatable, but also things like availability charts and bundling charts and a credit application. These are things that are really valuable for distributors to have their hands on very quickly. This might not seem like whiz-bangy marketing stuff that's like the thing you want to have on the top of the page, but this is what's important to this distributor. And so kind of knowing them and elevating that content is really valuable here. Our next example is vAuto. This is a software company that sells into car dealerships, and they sell all different kinds of software solutions. I want to pause here for a second. How many people would love to have site personalization, real-time site personalization on their website? Hearing about it, love the idea, totally feeling it. How many of you have real-time site personalization? How many of you totally wish you could have it, but think that is not in the cards for my budget and I definitely can't talk to IT about it? Feel ya. Definitely feel you, right? So if you love this idea of site personalization and you're jamming on the idea of giving the visitor that experience, but you think, I don't have the ability to buy the tools and the plugins and the thing to scrape the data and to do the IP and the blah, just ask. Just ask the people. Just ask them who they are when they come. That's what Viato's doing, and I straight love it. They know that they sell to different kinds of dealers, so when you come to their homepage, they say, hey, which kind of dealer are you? And then when you answer, they're straight up about it. They're like, okay, we're going to personalize your experience, but if you clicked the wrong thing or you want to kind of poke the tires around something else, here's how you can control it later. So I love that. They're handling site personalization in a way that's not requiring a lot of extra MarTech integration. And then when you get into the site, then you're really kind of put on rails, right? Instead of seeing all of these different software options, some which might work for me and some that wouldn't fit my use case, if I'm an independent dealer, I'm only going to see the options that fit for me, and it's great. And then their content is really kind of speaking the language of the buyer rather than saying, like, let us scream about all the product features. They're trying to really tap into what are the questions that these buyers are asking? What are the challenges that they are facing? And they're kind of trying to, invite the user to engage in that way and then take them down the path, obviously then to show how the software is a fit. Viato does a really great job also with interactive content. So they highlight some stats of what you could expect to experience, but then they really allow the car dealer to plug in a few numbers that they would already know, and then you can really quickly see, oh my goodness, this is the actual monetary value I could expect to get if I made this software purchase. So it's making the ROI really plain and simple for them to see, right? Kind of remove some of that friction from the decision choice. And then, of course, if they're jamming on that idea and they're super about it, there's a form that they can raise their hand and schedule a demo and talk live with someone. And then this screenshot doesn't show it, but right below there's kind of a secondary call to action that's like, if you're not quite ready to chat with us, here's another kind of content offer that you can also engage with. So they're also acknowledging that buyers are going to be at different levels of engagement and different levels of readiness. And so there's not just a one-size-fits-all CTA. They have one that certainly is the more prominent one, but they're kind of giving different sized hurdles depending on where the buyer is in their journey. All right, our next example is Temper Seeley. How many of you guys went to Tamsin Webster's talk on Monday? It was phenomenal. I loved it. I'm glad that lots of you guys went. One of the things that she said that really resonated with me is this idea of to kind of get that green light, trying to have your messages really validate the needs and beliefs of the buyers. And I think Temper Seeley does a really interesting job of this. So you might be going, Temper Seeley, that's a mattress. I'm not falling for that. What's so B2B about it? But this is actually the B2B division of Temper Seeley that sells into hotels. So the buyer that's landing on this website is a hotelier or even an ownership and management company that owns lots of different properties. So what do they care about? They care about having highly profitable businesses, right? And what does it take to have a highly profitable hotel? You need to have your rooms filled up every night, right? Well, what is one of the biggest factors to having your rooms filled up every night? Guest reviews, right? We're all about TripAdvisor or Ask a Friend or, all of those things, right? So hoteliers know that guest reviews are a critical factor in drawing business. So rather than Temper Seeley saying, welcome to our homepage, can we talk to you about our coils and springs and fabric choices? They're saying, we know that you care about your business. You're a hotel owner. You want that to be your focus. So if you want rave reviews, which are going to drive revenue for your property, let's let you in on a little secret. A good night's sleep means a good review, and a good review means better business. And if you buy our mattresses, your guests are going to have a good night's sleep. So it's all linked up, but it's really tied to a way that really shows that they're understanding the buyer's needs and preferences. Deeper into the site, they really focus on why their mattresses are designed for the specific use cases of hotels. And they dig into a couple of different personas. Not surprisingly here, they're speaking to the hotelier and talking to things like durability. But what I love is actually lower down on the page, they're talking about the features of their mattresses that are good for the housekeeping staff. Now you might be thinking, well, the housekeeping staff doesn't buy mattresses, so why are they talking about that? Well, again, if your buyer is a hotelier that needs a highly profitable business, they need guests to be happy, they want a highly engaged housekeeping staff that feels good about coming to work, greets the guests in a nice manner, does an excellent job every day, keeping them happy is great. So things like a no-welt cord that makes sure that they don't snag their fingernails when they're tucking in the sheets is actually a pretty good value proposition, because you can start to think about having a happy team. And also, it just shows that Tempur Sealy gets it. They're not out there shouting into the void, right? Tamsin Webster was like, don't just say, come buy our stuff. That's what Tempur Sealy's not doing. They're not saying, don't, just come buy our stuff. They're really trying to demonstrate that they get the buyer. Of course, they have all the specs and information that you need to have about the mattresses, but they also have really great content. I love the content that's down here in the right for see your revenue potential. They're continuing that message so you can get an ebook that's really demonstrating this principle of how better sleep can mean better business for you. And then they have a get a quote form. I know this is not like earth-shattering to have a get a quote form on your website, but there's a couple of things that I really like that they do. Number one, they have a very prominent find a rep call out on that get a quote page. So if you don't, like a lot of people don't want to talk to someone right away and they want to wait and they want to get the thing back, but if someone just wants to find someone to talk to, they can do that really quickly. And then the other thing is kind of lower down in the form, Tempur Sealy asks some really interesting questions. So like, what is your projected purchase date in which quarter of which year? And the other thing that Tempur Sealy knows is that hotels don't usually switch out all the mattresses all at once. They switch out a portion of the rooms at a time. So in addition to asking what's the quantity of mattresses you need so that they can actually provide the quote, they're asking what percentage of your hotel does that represent? Well, now all of a sudden, Tempur Sealy can size this opportunity, understand how close in the buying cycle is going to be, all of those things that can help them with lead qualification, lead routing, and understanding how to follow up. And then the quote you get on the back end of this continues to kind of follow up with that message that's not just saying, here's how much your mattresses are going to cost, but it keeps that message going of that revenue potential that's tied to a good night's sleep. So here's the edict that I want you to take from this one. Understand your buyers and what matters to them. Now, I know that's nothing new. We've been talking about buyer personas and that kind of stuff for a really long time. I totally get it. But here's the thing, and I can speak from experience on this one. When we start doing websites, all of a sudden everyone comes out of the woodwork, right? Everyone's got an opinion. You got the product people that want to say how the chart should look on the thing and which order the specs need to be delivered in and where the CAD drawings have to be, right? And then you got the sales people saying, well, the thing needs to do this thing and it has to work this way. And then of course, Susan from HR definitely needs a way to have this thing delivered. The CEO, I'm sure, has an opinion on what should be on the homepage. And all of these voices can start being in your head, and it's really difficult to even solve for all of them, and it's really easy to forget who the website is for. It's for your customers to buy your stuff. So make sure that you remember that and try to start from buyer personas or user stories. What are the questions that people are asking? What are the things they need to do at every stage of the buying cycle to really help them complete their job? All right, next we're going to hop into two different kind of software and technology solutions that I think do a really nice job. This is Vin Solutions. This is another software product that sells to car dealerships. And here's the thing, car dealers are an aggressive, assertive, smart, hardworking, super bunch of people. But they're not IT guys. And so a lot of times the buyers of this software are not really deeply steeped in buying software. And Vin Solutions knows that a lot of times their product works best in how it's integrated effectively with other solutions that the dealers might have. But that's not necessarily going to be kind of the way that a dealer is going to be thinking. So certainly there's a way to just explore by product. But Vin Solutions does a nice job, again, of kind of like teeing it up here. Do you want to just explore by challenge? So you can imagine a dealer being able to have this frame of reference, right? Like, oh yeah, this is my problem. I do want to improve my inventory management. Thanks for asking. That is exactly what I want to do. I don't have to figure out which products, because I can click on this button, and then you can tell me you can use this thing with this other thing, and it's going to do the thing that you want it to do. So I love that, right? They're making it easy for people that may not be as deeply steeped in how to buy software and how all these things should work together. And they have a little copy that's kind of supporting how that would work. The next example that I have here is QuickBooks, which is an accounting software that sells to small and medium businesses. And what I love here is the people that they're selling to are not accountants. These are people that are general contractors or caterers or artisanal cheese people, I don't know. But they're people that got into business to do something they're really passionate about. And that thing they're passionate about is definitely not accounting. And it's definitely not accounting software, right? It's definitely not accounting software. And so QuickBooks knows that, and they're saying it's simple and it's going to be shockingly easy to use. But then they follow up on that lower down in the homepage. So they're talking here, make organization easy. We don't expect you to be an accounting expert. Well, hallelujah, because I'm not. I have come to the right place, right? It's affirming what the buyer's experience is. And then this stat says 98% of customers agree it's a simpler way to manage their business. This stat doesn't say 98% of our customers agree that we're the best accounting software. It says it's a simpler way to manage their business, because that's what the people coming here actually want. They don't actually even want accounting software. They just want the invoicing and all the stuff to go away and be easier. So I love that the way that they're positioning this. And then lower down, you have things like get time on your side. You can save an average of 40 hours per month. And then keep more of what you earn. Our customers find on average $3,500 in tax savings. So this is, in really quick terms, putting the value proposition in things that are going to matter to a small business owner, time and money, rather than using the homepage to say, our quick input tool allows you to scan receipts very quickly. You know, I'm sure that is a page that's on here, but their homepage is speaking the language of the buyer. And so the takeaway that I want you to have here is, of course, we're in B2B, so the people that are coming to your website are professionals, but they may not necessarily be professional buyers. So you have to remember that they might not be used to how to buy this thing. They have a day job, right? That's like their regular thing that they have to do. And buying your thing is oftentimes an extra thing on top of the thing that they have to do. And it might be the first time they've ever done this before. And so they don't know how to buy this. They don't know which questions to ask. They don't know the comparisons to make. So you can either leave them to the wild and hope they can figure it out, or you can be the partner that says, come on, pal, it's gonna be all right. Let me help you figure out how to buy this thing. We'll get through it together. And then, of course, obviously, you can also put your content in there and share how your product is great. But coming alongside these buyers and understanding that their buying job might not be their primary job is a really valuable lesson to put forward on your website. All right, next we have Roll Park, which is so interesting to me. This is an alternative to asphalt and gravel that can roll out to make streets and parking lots. I mean, I have no idea what that is, but I straight love it because it seems very interesting. But here's the thing, asphalt, know what it is. Gravel, know what it is. Rollable geotextile, nope. Don't know what it is. So Roll Park has a harder job to do. They're an alternative or innovative product that's going to be less familiar to the buyers that are coming here. So they need to earn a little trust and get a little street cred and explain a little bit more than, you know, Jim's Asphalt Company that has their own website or whatever the case may be. So Roll Park does a really nice job right at the top of their homepage with some stats that really pay this off really well. It's 40% less cost. It's going to have 80% less construction time, but it's still super durable, and it's going to be permeable to protect surrounding land. And they have this call out really quickly, like, here's where you can find more reasons to choose Roll Park. So rather than just getting right into like, let me explain what Roll Park is and get super into the weeds, they're just like knowing that the buyer that's coming here is like, I heard about this thing, but I really don't know what it is, and they're kind of helping them facilitate that process of research. And then they also have this really easy comparison page. Here's the thing, guys, your buyers are gonna comparison shop. That is gonna be a thing, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. A lot of that might happen through peer networks and social networks and those kinds of things, asking for referrals and looking things up on forums. But also, it's gonna happen on the good old Google. And you can either leave your customer to have to try to figure out the comparisons on their own, or you can help. How many of you guys have ever had to buy something and you had to like literally create a spreadsheet of all of the criteria of what it was and go website to website and like fill in the spreadsheet because you had to be like even understanding comparing apples to apples? It's a pain in the butt. Well, Rollpark's just like, well, let me just help a brother out. I'm just going to give you this thing. Here's what asphalt does. Here's what gravel does. Here's what Rollpark does. And wink, wink, we're better. I'm going to build these things. You want to see how we're better? And so I love this. Rather than having the person that's coming here trying to go, okay, well, like, that's interesting about Rollpark, but I wonder how that really compares to asphalt. They're just doing the job for them and helping to shape that narrative. And then one of Rollpark's kind of key differentiators is this idea of the easy and fast installation time. But rather than just like saying that in a big fancy message that's like bada bing, bada boom, they really have a nice page that in very clear copy lays out what the steps are going to look like, how long each step is going to take, and it's very clear. And so you can imagine the person that's kind of worried about, yeah, but how's that really going to work, and what's that really going to mean for the crew, and whatever. They just make it super clear and kind of take out those ideas of gotchas. Rollpark also really has some nice case studies here, which I think are really powerful. But the thing that I wanted to call out is actually here at the bottom of the page of their case study, which is their call to action. It's another request a quote page, so I know that that call to action in and of itself isn't earth-shattering, but I really like how they position it. Again, they're this alternative product that might feel a little bit kind of uncertain to the visitor, and they're just making it really friendly. Is Rollpark a good fit for you? We're going to be super straightforward. If you click this button and fill out this thing, here are the 3 steps that are going to happen. If you want those things to happen, click on the button. If you don't want those things to happen, don't click on the button. And I just think it's kind of like a nice way to just set the expectations for the user about what they can, expect to happen next. The next example is Sitecore. Do any of you have websites that are built on Sitecore? Yeah, a couple, shout out. So Sitecore is a content management system can build websites on. I would say it's at the farther end of the spectrum as it relates to kind of complexity and feature set and cost. And so it can feel like a really big decision. And there's a lot of different features of Sitecore and a lot of different options and choices of packages you can include or not include, so it can feel really complex. But one of the things that Sitecore focuses on a lot is personalization. And so not surprisingly, Sitecore is going to have a great site personalization experience on their own website. But what I love is they actually just tell you, like, this section has been personalized. And they also give you the control over whether or not you want to turn off the personalization. So they're saying we're personalizing this for you because we think it's going to make it better, but if you're not digging it, it's cool, you can turn it off. And I love this for 2 reasons. It puts the user in control, but it also shows that Sitecore is kind of drinking their own Kool-Aid, right? And so in the experience of their site, you're kind of getting the experience of their product. I also love the way that Sitecore brings their product to life. I think one of the challenges that I see on a lot of software websites in particular is they're at one of 2 ends of the spectrum. They're either at this huge 30,000-foot view with all these grandiose promises about how if you buy this thing, it's going to make everything better and business is going to boom. Or it's way down here in the weeds. Here are all the features and the choices and the specs and the things and all the different packages that you can get. But it's really difficult to kind of find that middle ground of like, do I understand how I would actually use this thing and what would actually happen and how that would actually work? And I think Sitecore does a nice job of demonstrating how a product that's as complex as theirs can really matter. So if you can imagine yourself as a buyer of Sitecore that might be a retailer, they demonstrate here how one shopper at that retailer might, have a personalized experience by having, the ability to engage with Maria instantly, build your profile of this customer over time from all of the different data sources that you can aggregate, serve content that's relevant for her over time at the right time. And then, of course, Maria is going to become a lifelong customer that's stickier and has a longer lifetime value. So it's on the value proposition of what's really important to the buyer here. And then they have a great case study, lots of great case studies. One of the things that they do really well is kind of tee up the challenges. And when people are looking for case studies, what they really want is the permission to believe that people like me, in companies like this, with problems just like mine, bought this thing, and it worked. It worked. And so if I buy it, it's going to work. And so what I love about Sitecore is they do a really nice job of these quick punches of teeing up the challenge. So the visitor to the website can look and see, do those challenges resonate with me? Does that represent my problem? Is this the case study that kind of tees to me? But the other thing that I want to point out is actually a little bit further up on the page. How many of you wish you had more case studies? That's lots of you. How many of you just don't, you wish you had case studies, but you just don't do it because why? How many of you wish you had more case studies, but you don't have them because it's really, really hard? Really hard, right? Because either like the account team doesn't want you to talk to their customers, or the salespeople are like, nah, I'm not giving you that data, or maybe you sell through distributors and you don't even know who your customers are, so even if you could call them, you don't know who they are. Well, Sitecore is not our client, so I don't know if this is the exact strategy, but I love this. This case study is a Sitecore award winner. So here's an idea. Start an awards program where your customers can submit their own stories about how they're using your stuff. You get engagement with customers, you get case studies. It feels like a win-win. I don't know, that's just a little nugget I'm throwing out there. So the takeaway here is make the complex simple and safe. A lot of B2B purchases are really complex. They can feel scary. They can feel overwhelming. And so what are the things that you can do to boil down that complexity? Now, I don't mean skip all of the details. You need to have your specs and your details and the information that people need for the website to have legitimate information. But how can you make it more simple to engage with that information? And then you know that phrase, no one ever got fired for buying IBM, right? It's because that was the safe choice, right? And it was like that felt like the guaranteed thing. Well, what can you do in your messaging and your experience on your website to kind of make your own product the safe choice? All right, next we have Packlane. This is a custom packaging company, again, selling to kind of small businesses. And I love that they're kind of highlighting those small businesses rather than themselves. You can kind of see the packaging options look like things for a spirits distiller and all of these different things. So rather than this screaming, we're Packlane, it's kind of celebrating the types of buyers that come here. And it can already kind of make that person that's really passionate about the business that they're running, passionate enough to want custom packaging rather than a brown box to ship their stuff in. It's kind of already starting to say, like, we speak your language. They make it really quick to understand, like, what are the choices that I can have here? But what I really love about Packlane's site is that they have this how it works video. Rather than saying, it will be super easy to buy our boxes, they just show you. They show you an embedded video of what it's like to order the boxes and to customize them. And I love this because it just kind of is that little point of removing friction rather than like, I'm sure you said it's easy, but it's probably not. You can really see this video and you're like, that actually doesn't look too bad. And I'll admit, it roped me in. I designed an MX group box. And here's the thing, they weren't lying. It actually was a super easy process because I made this thing. And it was really easy to use the user interface. And you know what was also awesome? I could understand how the choices I was making impacted the price. Y'all, we all want that in our consumer lives, but how many of our B2B websites are like, oh, you want to know the price? Good luck. Good luck with that. You're going to have to talk to Vern for 3 hours before you're going to get that. So that might not be realistic for you, but just think about what you want as a buyer, and if you can let people understand this thing's more expensive, this thing's less expensive, I think it's really valuable. And then one last shout out for Packlane, they have this call out when you're on a mobile phone. Hey, mobile user, we're working hard to improve our mobile experience, but until then, you might prefer a larger screen. So here's the thing, I think this happens in a lot of B2B websites, right? You have some spec grid thing that's like a 50-column wide chart of something that you have to show for the thing, right? Does anyone have one of these that has to be on the website? And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna put that on a mobile phone. How's that gonna work? And there are some solutions. We actually have worked through this for some of our clients. But there are some things that are just really complex about B2B. But rather than just like letting it hang out there and have people be super frustrated and be like, all right, forget it, I'm moving on to the next one, Packlane's like, we know this isn't rad, but if you just move over to your laptop and grab another latte, you can design a pretty rad box and it'll still be super easy. So I think they just have that moment of acknowledging. The next one is Step-In. This is a chemical company, so they're like way at the opposite spectrum from the boxes. But they have lots of different products, lots of different complex features and choices. And I think a lot of times on B2B websites that have lots and lots of products, we think our only job is to have a big thing that says products at the top of the nav. And we're like, well, we told you where they were. Go find them. Good luck. Hope you can find the one you're looking for. And it's just like a hunt and peck situation. Well, Step-In wanted to make a better situation for their customers. So they made a product finder. So just like if you're like shopping on Target.com or something, you can click, I want to find the things that are available in my geography with this kind of viscosity or whatever, and you can have then the result of the things that are going to fit your needs. The last example here is Anvil. This is a pipe hanger company, and they sell they get spec'd into all kinds of different buildings. And the problem is they need to get spec'd into designs that are done by engineers months and months before they actually need to get purchased. And then the person that actually buys the thing is way down the food chain. So they have to influence all of these different types of people to get their products purchased. One of the things they knew is that engineers have this hideous process of having to get all of these things approved with a submittal. Every single thing that is in this room was on a plan and had to have little spec sheets and stamps and signatures on it, and it is a pain in the neck that is slow and tedious for engineers. So Anvil was like, we can make this better. We're going to make a submittal tool that lets an engineer pick any product, add it to a submittal, and then they can assign a project number, and it's going to compile all of the spec information and all of the stamps and signature lines and everything into one PDF that's easily printable and shareable. And we're going to make it super easy. You can also save it. So if you want to make a template for your next project and your next project and your next project, we can remove that slow and tedious from your purchase process. Sold, right? Totally sold. And of course, that influences stickiness. So the edict here is, what can you do to reduce that friction in the buying process? Again, remember, they have lots of things that they're trying to do. What are the things that you can make to make a smooth, frictionless buying process? For some of you, that might be all the way through thinking about, an e-commerce experience like Packlane, or it might be something more like Anvil that's like, this isn't exactly the purchase, but I can remove friction from that buying process. All right, so we're coming into the home stretch here. We've talked about the better mousetrap, but I want to leave you with one more thing. If you're really thinking about a site redesign for yourself, I want to challenge you to not think about your website in templates. That's how a lot of us have CMSs that are structured, and this is the page template for products, and this is the page template for this. If you have the opportunity to do a site redesign, I want to encourage you to think about modular design. This is designing your website with these small little deployable nuggets that you can kind of rearrange over time. It reminds me of those fashion plates that I had when I was a girl. You could kind of pick this hairdo and this shirt and these pants and then color over it with the crayon, and it had endless combinations. Well, that's really what modular design is. And it puts the power in the hands of us as marketers, if you have a really great CMS, that you can evolve over time as your products change, as your buyers change, as your company is innovating, you can evolve your site more quickly. So instead of being stuck in this situation where maybe you're in this place where you can only do a website every 4 years or every 7 years, or I hope it's not longer than every 7 years, but you're stuck in this place of feeling like the website is such a huge undertaking that you can't possibly redo it again. With modular design, you can have this kind of launch and iterate, test and learn, see how the market's evolving, see what your analytics are showing, and evolve your website over time. And I think that's a really powerful tool for us as marketers, because it allows you to really stop thinking about, I'm going to build my better website and it's going to be this better mousetrap. It stops you thinking about it like this, and instead you get to think about your website like this mamma jamma, right? Tons of awesome pieces that you can move around, reconfigure, lots of different options. At the end of the day, you're always going to get the mouse, right? And it's going to be driving that business value that you need to get out of your website, but you can continue to evolve it over time.